My relationship era began. When the black real estate agent showed me the pool, I stood in the doorway of my childhood home for the last time. Boxes scattered around my feet like fragments of a life I was desperately trying to leave behind. The divorce papers had been finalized 3 weeks ago. My job had let me go 2 months before that, and my father had passed away just 6 months prior. At 34 years old, I felt like I was drowning in quicksand, and every attempt to pull myself out only dragged me deeper. The house filled with memories I could no longer bear to face had to be sold. I had to start over, even though I had no idea what starting over even meant anymore. The real estate agent my lawyer recommended was named Marcus Webb. When he arrived, that first morning, I barely looked at him, mumbling something about just wanting to find a small place. Something cheap, something that would let me disappear. I was so wrapped up in my own misery that I didn't notice the kindness in his eyes or the patient way he waited for me to finish my scattered thoughts. He was tall, with graying temples that suggested wisdom rather than age, and he carried himself with a quiet confidence that I found almost irritating in my broken state. He simply nodded, made a few notes on his tablet, and told me he had some properties to show me that afternoon. I agreed mechanically, feeling nothing, expecting nothing. We drove through neighborhoods I'd never explored, areas of the city I'd dismissed or ignored during my marriage. My ex-husband had always insisted we live in certain parts of town, places that reflected his image of success and status. Now, unmoored from those expectations, I felt lost in a different way. Marcus didn't fill the silence with empty chatter or aggressive sales pitches. Instead, he drove carefully, occasionally pointing out a park or a coffee shop, giving me space to exist in my grief without demanding I perform normalcy. It was such a small thing, but after months of people telling me to cheer up, to move on, to see the bright side, his quiet presence felt like relief. The first few houses were fine, I suppose. I barely remember them. I walked through rooms with blank walls and empty closets, trying to imagine myself living there and failing completely. Marcus never pushed, never acted frustrated with my lack of enthusiasm. He would simply lock up, make another note, and suggest we try the next one. By the fourth property, I was exhausted, ready to give up for the day, ready to go back to the hotel room I'd been staying in and sleep for 16 hours. But Marcus said there was one more place, something a little different, and asked if I'd be willing to look. Something in his tone made me agree. The house was smaller than the others, tucked into a neighborhood that felt lived in rather than manicured. The paint was a soft yellow that looked warm even under the gray sky, and there were flower boxes under the windows, though they were empty now in late autumn. I felt a flicker of something as we walked up the path, though I couldn't name it. Marcus unlocked the door and let me enter first. The interior was cozy, with hardwood floors that creaked gently and windows that let in more light than seemed possible. I wandered through the rooms, touching the walls, opening cabinets, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. Then Marcus said something that changed everything. He mentioned there was a backyard and I should really see it. I followed him through the kitchen and out the back door, expecting a patch of grass, maybe a fence. Instead, I found myself standing at the edge of an in-ground pool. It wasn't large or fancy, just a simple rectangle of blue water that reflected the sky, surrounded by weathered stone pavers and a few scattered leaves. And sitting on those pavers, just at the pool's edge, was an old golden retriever, gray around the muzzle, who looked up at us with gentle, tired eyes. Marcus's entire demeanor shifted. He knelt down immediately, his professional composure melting into pure affection, and the dog's tail began to wag slowly. He explained that this was Bailey, and she belonged to the previous owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen who had recently moved into assisted living. Mrs. Chen's family was selling the house, but they'd been struggling to find anyone willing to take Bailey. She was 12 years old, had arthritis, and needed daily medication. Most potential buyers saw her as a burden, an inconvenience to be dealt with. The family had been heartbroken, caught between selling the house their mother loved and finding a home for the dog who had been her constant companion. I watched Marcus scratch behind Bailey's ears, speaking to her in a soft voice, promising her that things would work out, that the right person would come along. And something inside my chest, something I thought had died completely, cracked open. I found myself sitting down on the cold stone, and Bailey slowly made her way over to me, resting her heavy head on my lap. Her brown eyes looked into mine with a depth of understanding that made tears spill down my cheeks before I could stop them. Here was another soul who had lost everything familiar, who was confused and waiting and hoping for kindness from a world that felt cruel. Marcus didn't rush me. He sat nearby telling me about Mrs. Chen and Bailey, how they used to swim together in this pool every summer, how Mrs. Chen would sit in a chair right where I was sitting and read books while Bailey paddled lazy circles. He told me about the walks they took around the neighborhood, the way Bailey knew every dog and every person on their street, how she'd been a therapy dog at the local children's hospital for years before her arthritis made the visits too difficult. He painted a picture of a life filled with purpose and love, a life that had been good and full until circumstances changed everything. I realized Marcus wasn't just showing me a house. He was showing me a second chance, both for Bailey and for me. He was showing me that starting over didn't mean erasing everything that came before. Didn't mean running away from all the pain and complexity. It meant making space for new connections, new purpose even when you felt broken beyond repair. I asked him, my voice shaking, what would happen to Bailey if I didn't take her? He looked at me honestly and said the family would keep trying. But if they couldn't find someone soon, they'd have to make difficult decisions. The weight of that hung in the air between us. I spent 2 hours at that house, most of it sitting by the pool with Bailey, while Marcus made phone calls and gave me space. He brought me a bottle of water from his car without being asked. He pointed out the heating system for the pool that Mrs. Chen had installed so she could swim year-round. He showed me the little shed that was filled with pool toys and floaties, and I imagined lonely evenings transformed into something bearable, something almost joyful by the simple act of floating in warm water under the stars. I imagined Bailey beside me, keeping watch, both of us healing in our own ways. When I finally told Marcus I wanted the house, wanted Bailey, wanted this unexpected life that was being offered to me, he smiled in a way that reached his eyes completely. He handled all the details with the family, negotiated terms I barely understood, and stayed in constant contact over the following weeks as we moved toward closing. He helped me coordinate with Mrs. Chen's family about Bailey's routines and medications. He even connected me with his own veterinarian and gave me the number of a dog walker in the neighborhood who'd known Bailey for years. Every interaction revealed more of his character, more of his genuine investment in people's well-being beyond just making a sale. On moving day, Marcus showed up with coffee and helped carry boxes even though it wasn't remotely his job. He stayed to make sure Bailey was settling in okay, that I knew how to work the pool controls, that I had everything I needed. Before he left, he told me something I'll never forget. He said that his mother had gone through something similar years ago, had lost almost everything and felt like giving up, until a kind stranger helped her find not just a house but a reason to keep going. He'd become a real estate agent because he believed everyone deserved a home that felt like a new beginning, not just a place to hide from the world. If this story has touched your heart in any way, if you believe in the power of unexpected kindness and second chances, I want to ask you something from my heart to yours. Please take just a moment to like this video, to share it with someone who might need to hear it, and to subscribe if you believe in stories that remind us of our shared humanity. These small actions helped us message reach others who are standing in their own doorways, wondering if they'll ever feel whole again. Your engagement truly matters, and I'm so grateful you're here. The weeks that followed were harder than I'd imagined in some ways, easier in others. Bailey's arthritis meant gentle, slow walks, but those walks forced me outside, forced me to greet neighbors, forced me to exist in the world again. The pool became my sanctuary, and true to Marcus's promise, swimming in the warm water under the evening sky became a kind of meditation. Bailey would lie on her bed nearby, and sometimes I'd talk to her about my father, about my failed marriage, about all the ways I'd lost myself. She never judged, never offered platitudes, just listened with those wise, patient eyes. Marcus checked in regularly those first few months, always with some excuse, asking if the furnace was working okay, if I'd met the neighbors, if Bailey seemed happy. But I knew what he was really asking, and I appreciated it more than I could express. He'd given me more than a house. He'd given me a purpose outside my own pain, a living being who needed me as much as I needed her. Some mornings, the only reason I got out of bed was because Bailey needed her medication, needed her breakfast, needed her short walk around the block, and that was enough. That was everything. Gradually, imperceptibly, I began to rebuild. I started a small online business from my home office. I made friends with the neighbors, especially an elderly couple who'd been friends with Mrs. Chen and who cried with happiness when they saw Bailey was being loved and cared for. I joined a community pool therapy group and eventually started volunteering, helping others the way Marcus had helped me. Bailey and I became fixtures at the local park, and I found myself smiling at strangers, holding doors, asking people how they were and actually wanting to know the answer. Before I share the ending of this story, I want to ask you to do something special. If this journey has resonated with you, if you've ever felt lost and then found, or if you simply believe in the kindness of strangers, please leave a comment below telling me about a time someone showed you unexpected compassion. Your stories matter, and they create a community of hope for everyone who reads them. A year after I moved into the house, I contacted Marcus to thank him properly and to tell him that I'd decided to become a foster parent for senior dogs, giving them a loving home in their final years. The pool house had been converted into a comfortable space, and Bailey had become the gentle matriarch of a rotating family of older dogs who needed peace and love. Marcus came to visit, and when he saw what I'd built, tears filled his eyes. He told me this was exactly why he did what he did, and I told him that he hadn't just sold me a house. He'd shown me that my relationship with life, with purpose, with hope could begin again, even when I thought everything was over. It had all started with a black real estate agent showing me a pool and trusting that I could see what he saw. Not just water and stone, but possibility, connection, and a future worth swimming toward. And I would be grateful for that moment, for his kindness for Bailey, and for the life I never knew I could have, for all my remaining days.